Hello, everyone, and thank you for listening to Retold, a Harry Potter podcast. This is a show for Potter fans of all sorts to tune in and have fun living in the wizarding world just a little more. My name is Barry, and every week I sit down with a new guest host and we go through the Harry Potter books 2 chapters at a time. We also have some fun segments filled with trivia, deep lore, movie changes, and favorite lines. And at the very end of the episode, we have a spoiler section called the Restricted Section. Ooh. This week, we will be covering chapters 11 and 12 of The Chamber of Secrets, and I am joined by a very special guest, Andy from the Streaming Things podcast. And I want to just stop right here and say thank you so much to Andy for being on this episode and to the Streaming Things podcast, which is a major inspiration for my podcast. And I've been a fan of it for years. I won't say too much here because honestly, you'll hear me talk a lot about Streaming Things and hype it up a good bit in this episode, but it is quite literally one of, if not my actual favorite podcast that I've ever listened to. And it was such an honor to get to have Andy to be a part of this episode. He is so funny and so easy to talk Potter with. I'm still so grateful that he came on for this episode. When I started doing this podcast, it was actually a goal of mine to have this happen. So again, really cool that it did happen. As for house elf keeping things for this episode, you will hear me chime back in later with the Quizzit score. Right now, it is 8-8, so we will see what happens in this podcast. Also, if you are not a fan of Streaming Things, if you haven't listened to it, I don't know why you wouldn't, but if you haven't, I do apologize for 3 quick little jokes that I make that only fans of that podcast would get, but they are very quick, so no worries there. This episode does get just a little more risque than some of my normal episodes also, but I still believe that we keep our family-friendly rating all the same, for the most part. Anyway, as always, please rate and review the show if you can. That helps me out a lot. Share it with all of your Potter friends, and feel free to reach out to me if you want. You can send me a comment, owl post, or howler by emailing me at theretoldpodcast@gmail.com, or you can send me a message on Instagram at theretoldpodcast. Anyway, without further ado, enjoy the episode.
1, 2, 3. Expelliarmus!
I'll be in my bedroom, making no noise and pretending that I don't exist.
Oh dear, we are in trouble.
Where have you been?
You shall not harm Harry Potter!
50 points and it goes through her head.
I strongly recommend caution.
Scared Potter.
You wish. I didn't know you could read.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Retold, a Harry Potter podcast. This is a show where I retell you my favorite story of all time, Harry Potter. But I'm never alone on this journey. With me today, I'm joined by one of the hosts of my absolute favorite podcast in the whole world. It's Andy from Streaming Things. Hi,
Hey,
Andy.
man. Hey, how's it going?
It's so freaking good. Andy, I'm so freaking excited. We just talked for a little bit, but listeners don't even know. This is the most amazing thing to have happened on this podcast so far. Thank you for joining us. Can you tell us just a little bit about Streaming Things before we get going?
Well, first off, thank you. I appreciate that anybody listens to us. We did it into a void for many years. And so the fact that we have anybody listening at all, or the amount of people that we do now, is still unbelievable to us. And I'm just incredibly grateful for that. For what the show is, it is just 3 dudes that have a shared passion for TV and film. My co-host Kit and I have been friends since we were probably 8 years old or something like that. And so I feel blessed to still have as close friendship with him as I do this many years later, as we push well into middle age. But and then I met Steve in film class in college, and we all worked on a short film together once, just a passion project. And Kit and I were trying so hard to make one of our creative projects work. And this is one that actually stuck. So I'm just a dude that has surrounded himself by much more talented people. I just happen to be, I think, the biggest Harry Potter fan of the group. So I feel privileged that you selected me to be on your show. And I'm happy to be here.
That's definitely one of the reasons I reached out. I remember listeners, if you want to check it out and want to laugh really hard, you should check out Streaming Things coverage of the Harry Potter movies. They went through all 8 movies. It was so funny. I wanted to say, I know we just met, so I'm not going to make this joke right to you because it'll sound weird. I was going to say, Andy, can I have permission to gush? And that would sound really weird, but I'm just going to gush anyway.
Right
Streaming
on.
Things is amazing. Everybody, you need to check this show out. Sometimes I get so mad at these boys, these men, because I'll be at the gym in the middle of a set and it ruins my set because I'm laughing so hard. Like I have to pause it now whenever I start my workouts because of like, I can't freaking do this. It's literally like the highlight of my work week when I'm a part-time landscaper. And when I do landscaping, I listen to the episodes, and it is one of the greatest joys of my work week if I see you guys are covering something I'm into. These guys are so funny, so intelligent, insightful. I love all the cool insights they have on directing and movie lore and how stuff is made. One of my favorite jokes you guys used to do, I haven't heard it in a long time, when Steve would talk about like obvious exposition, he would say, "This person said," and looked at the camera.
Right. Yeah.
I love that one. But yeah, absolutely amazing. I think one of the things that, and again, I'll get to my podcast in a second. I was just gushing for a minute. One of my favorite things about Streaming Things is even when I like disagree vehemently with something Kit says, because it's usually Kit.
Sure. Me too.
Even then, I still love hearing it because it's such a genuine take. It's so kind. It's so well thought out. All of you guys are so self-deprecating, so fun with one another. I love the recap show because to me, it's just like I'm literally watching a movie while I'm working. It's so awesome. So
thanks, man. Yeah, I think that we spend the majority of the time just trying to make each other laugh.
Mhm.
And then in the meantime, just, talk about the thing on screen. Sometimes we're insightful, usually not. But I think that we're generally good for at least a laugh or two, at least amongst each other.
Mhm.
And more than anything, we try to foster a sense of inclusivity and just camaraderie. I think that if we can make the listener feel like they're in the room with us, just hanging out, bullcrapping about movies, then then we're doing our job right. It's a pleasure every week to get to go hang out with them in the studio and laugh harder than I ever laugh in my entire life, just hanging out with my friends.
Yeah, and that's the vibe that I get from Streaming Things because, just like you said, I feel like I'm in there. It's wonderful. It's great to hear. And I was going to say this too when I was thinking about it was. I've listened to other review shows before, and I'm not exactly sure how to describe it, but there is something fake oftentimes about the review, something about, I guess about being more about the product that they're making, but I like what you said. It's about you guys being friends, and you can sense that in every episode. So,
thank you.
Yeah, enough gushing about Streaming Things, though. I had to shout it all out though because this show is heavily inspired by Streaming Things. I heard you guys doing your takes. I loved it. I started listening to you guys when you were covering Rings of Power, the first season.
Oh, awesome.
First season of it. And it was like Christmas because you did both Hot D and Rings of Power at the same time. I know that must have been so much work.
That was a metric ton of work, man. Absolutely. We were recording several days a week.
Mm-hmm.
It was intense.
And I sometimes I go back and re-listen. I re-listen to the Lord of the Rings coverage episodes multiple times a year. I love those ones. It's one of my favorite fandoms too. So they have great stuff, but I had to shout them out because so much on this podcast is just what they do on their podcast of we review the chapter, recapping what happens, scene by scene recap kind of. And at the end of it, our favorite line segment, they have something similar of like favorite scenes on their TV show coverages. Like so many of my jokes and references, it's so much Streaming Things. And if you listen to both shows, you'll be like, dang, Barry, you're a copycat. But anyway, without further ado, let's get to talking about your dumb podcast. and let's talk about my dumb podcast. First thing I do in every episode, Andy, is I ask the guest what their fandom ID is. And so what that means is I just want to know what Hogwarts house you're in. What is your favorite Harry Potter book, if you've read all the books, which I know you have, and your favorite movie. And then how did you get involved with Harry Potter? Like how did you first become a fan?
Okay, sure. So the house that I am in, I am a Slytherin.
That fools me. I would not have guessed.
So I feel like Slytherin house is done dirty in the books and the movies.
In these chapters.
Yeah. I think that Slytherins, they are cunning and ambitious, and they're intelligent, and they are I don't know if it's the right word, but they're intelligent about the way that they do things, or at least that's the way that I perceive them. So I look at them as the misunderstood house, and I think that that's why I identify with them.
You feel misunderstood, Andy?
Sometimes, yeah, especially when I was younger. You know, I was the kid in the jean jacket with their Nirvana t-shirt and smoking cigarettes out back the high school, and like none of the girls want to hang out with me. And so, yeah,
that sounds like a guy to hang out. I don't know what girl wouldn't want to hang out with that.
Right. Yeah. And so, yeah, I always looked at them as the misunderstood house. And so, especially in the Cursed Child, later on when we find out that Harry's own son ended up being a Slytherin, I think that there was finally some vindication and comeuppance for Slytherin house, because I think that they're good people. That said, I also identify as a Gryffindor, very much so. If I were to switch houses, you know, if I wasn't a Slytherin, I think I would definitely be a Gryffindor. As for my favorite book, it is by far The Goblet of Fire. I think that book is an absolute masterpiece. It's not just like an incredibly well-written mystery and a very fun progression of style and content for J.K. Rowling. I think that it's also this transition into adulthood. So one of the other questions you asked was like, how did I become a fan? So I was born in 1987. So I was 11 years old, I think, when the first book came out. And I identified with Harry, and I got to grow up with these characters. I found out about the first book a couple of months after it was published, and it started, catching on fire in the literary world and the children's young adult literature world. My friend's grandma told me about it. She lived up the street from me, and she was like, "Hey, I saw this book at the library. I think you should check it out. It sounds fun." Because I was always a big reader when I was little, and so I read the first book shortly before. I guess like shortly before the second one came out. So I was ready and waiting by the time the second one came out. And I was a huge fan immediately. And I showed it to my siblings, and we all fell in love. And so every year or every other year, because at first I think they came out like every year for a little bit there.
And then they got thick.
And so it took a little longer in between books.
I couldn't imagine having to wait. That's especially in today's age where we just binge things and go like when I went through all the books, I went through books 1 through 6 in a month, and then I just had to wait for book 7.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's crazy that you had to wait literally for every single book.
Yeah, every year. And so I would reread all of the books in the lead up to the next one coming out. And up until like maybe I think the 5th book, when it would come out, I would sit down and I'd read it in one sitting every time. Just absolutely loved it. But the 4th book...
That's nuts. That's so nuts. The whole thing in one sitting. Wow.
Oh, yeah. It was some of the best moments of my life, honestly. The 4th book, I think, is a turning point where it becomes more mature. I think that at this point, you know, Harry's 14, I'm 14, and I think J.K. Rowling starts to have a little bit of faith in the readers and trust in them to be able to unpack a much more layered, much more nuanced story. And I think that the way that it culminates in the end is very dark and very much a turning point and a, hey, we're not a kid's book anymore. And
Very
now
Empire Strikes Back type of ending.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. We're having an adult series now. And I think that, yeah, it's just an incredible book. My favorite movie, I go back and forth on this. I think that my favorite movie is probably The Half-Blood Prince. I think that stylistically it's the most interesting. It has some of my favorite performances. I think that bringing in Jim Broadbent as Professor Slughorn was just an absolute home run for casting for Harry Potter. I was listening to one of your episodes, and your co-host in that episode had said that his favorite scene in all of Harry Potter was the story that he told about the fish that Lily conjured for him. That is also my favorite scene in all of Harry Potter.
That's a great one.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. And I think that that movie is also the one where the kids kind of come into their own as actors. The casting for Harry Potter was very much the royalty of England, you know. Almost everybody that plays an adult character in Harry Potter is an extremely well established, often like Shakespearean performer, you know, just incredible actors left and right that are dealing with a bunch of kids.
Yeah, and I didn't even know that at the time. Like watching these movies, I'm like, I remember when you guys were covering the movies on your podcast, you would highlight just how famous these people were. And to me, aside from like Snape, Alan Rickman, because I love like Die Hard and some of his other movies, aside from him, I didn't even know how famous some of these other actors were until you guys just talked about. And I've been a fan of the movies for years, but I just really hadn't seen much of their stuff. So that's just that's so wild that the most famous people in these movies are the side characters, you know?
Oh yeah, man.
Speaking of, they just casted the did you see they casted the
I saw that
new actors today?
I saw that, and they look great. I don't know anything about them. They're a bunch of unknowns, but they look the part, and I'm excited to see what they do. I feel like it's going to ruin their lives. But you know,
I probably shouldn't laugh at that. I'm so excited for them. And again, I hate, you know, any type of hate that comes their way before. I mean, throughout the whole series, they're going to be kids. So leave them alone, hype them up. They look amazing. So like they look like they fit the role. I'm excited for them. Wish them the best. And
are you excited for the show?
I am. I'm so excited for this show. I keep seeing people, like some of the haters online post, be like, some of their comments will say, nobody asked for this. And I was like, what are you talking about? I listen to so many Potter podcasts, and we're all asking for it. We're like, yes, give it to us. This is going to be amazing. We'll get a whole book now in these TV shows. So
yeah, I genuinely can't wait. And even bad Harry Potter is more Harry Potter. So even if they were to kind of fumble the bag, as it were, I think that I will still have a great time just to get another view on the world, you know?
And that's how I feel about like, even about like the Fantastic Beasts series, because I still enjoyed it. I know that it has its flaws, but I'm still like, yo, it's more content in the wizarding world. People will hate on I love the Hobbit movies, and people hate on my love for the Hobbit movies.
Do you love them?
I freaking love them.
Good, man.
And I even have an argument that in some ways, again, they're not better than the trilogy. They're not better than Lord of the Rings.
I thought that's what you were about to say.
No, I would never speak such blasphemy. But in some ways, they have some things that are better. Like the things that I always highlight to people. I'll be curious your take, because listeners may not know, Andy's a massive Lord of the Rings fan too. One of the things that I always tell people is that, like, set dialogue pieces, The Hobbit has the two best. All of both series. I think it's Bilbo talking to Gollum, and then Bilbo talking to Smaug. I don't know any dialogue piece in Lord of the Rings that is better than that. There's definitely better one-liners all throughout Lord of the Rings, for sure. Yeah. But like full-length conversation, I'm like, this movie's got it. And I guess the other thing I like the most about the Hobbit movies is that they're so rewatchable, in that like Lord of the Rings sucks me in. I have to sit down and watch it. The Hobbit, I can just play in the background. It's lighthearted and it's fun.
Sure. I haven't gone back to the Hobbit movies in a long time. I do remember thinking that the writing was particularly well done. If I didn't love as much, the heavier reliance on special effects and stuff.
Yeah.
It is what it is, and it's
Mhm.
still a really fun movie. I think especially the first half of the first one is infinitely rewatchable, but I haven't gone back to them in a long time, so it's hard to speak to that. But as far as can just have it on and have a good time, man, my wife and I almost every night put on one of the Harry Potter movies to go to bed. So it's just comfort food for me. So I don't think that I'm by any means a super fan. So I hope that you take it easy on me in the trivia section, because I know some stuff. I'm no slouch, but I'm not going to know the length and wood type of some side character's wand or anything like that.
Guys, Steve is being, not Steve, I called you, my apologies. Andy's being modest. He's a huge fan. He says it all the time on streaming things. If he's not, then he's a fraud and a liar. What is it? You've been popping off lately on the some of the Last of Us coverage. I'll hear you've probably made like 6 Harry Potter jokes in the past few episodes.
I can't help it, man. It's ingrained into my DNA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I always catch it. There was, oh shoot, I meant to make a note of it because I listened to the last episode today, and I was like, you made one joke that nobody laughed at, but it was a Harry Potter one, and I was like, I caught it.
They never do laugh at my jokes, man. I am the pro at saying something that's super fire, and then on a rewatch they're gonna pick up the reference.
The funniest one that happened in today's in the Last of Us, the last episode y'all covered, was Steve made some joke, and I can't remember what it was, but if people go back and listen, they'll hear he made some joke. It wasn't funny. He doubled down and he said it like he doubled down on the joke like 2 or 3 more times, and then you guys laughed because even I thought it wasn't funny, but it was his commitment to the bit.
Yeah, man.
And one last thing before we hop into trivia, another amazing thing about streaming things is I didn't even watch The Last of Us season 2. I watched season 1. My wife played the video game, and she played both video games, so she knows what happened. I look up spoilers.
Oh, okay.
I look them up. I don't care. I do it all the time. When I read the Game of Thrones books, I'd get so nervous that I'd look up, like, when does this character die? Because I'm like, how much longer do I have with them? I need to prepare. But because, so I didn't want to be in like I didn't want to be depressed watching The Last of Us season 2. But even with the show that I've never watched or that I don't watch, I still listen to their coverage because it's so funny. So good.
Thanks, man.
And I was familiar with the world too, so it's easier.
Sure.
But anyway, back to the podcast. Enough of all that. We're going to get to trivia time. So, Andy, what I'm doing, I did it last season and I won. I proved I was better than the world. The way that this works is I ask my guest hosts 2 trivia questions. They ask me 2 trivia questions. I keep track of the score, and they're trivia questions based on the chapter. I keep track of the score, and at the end of the season, at the end of the book, we see who knew more, me representing me or my guests who represent the world. And so it's already been certified that I know more about Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone more than the whole world. Right now, I'm woefully behind on
Did anybody get you a trophy yet?
No, nobody did. In fact, they argued the legitimacy of my win, which
Stop the steal.
Stop it. Not okay. But anyway, how about do you have your questions ready to go?
I do.
All right, you hit me with yours first.
I have 4 of them here, and I don't know. Most of them are, well, 2 of them are specific to Chamber of Secrets, and then 2 of them are much broader.
Okay.
Let me see here. Let me start with this was a fun one that I looked up, and I don't know if it's a deep cut or not, but I think that it's fun for me just because I'm getting old. So my question for you is, what is Harry Potter's birthday, and how old would he be today?
Today? Oh my goodness. So I know that it's July 31st, but I never remember the year. I'm going to say it was 1980. Is that right? 1980?
That is correct.
Heck yeah.
Dang.
So that would make him, it's 2026. He'd be, 2025. shoot, he'd be 24. No, sorry, no, 44. 44.
That is correct, man.
Dang.
Not bad.
Our boy's getting old. Are you a friend of or fan of Friends, the TV show?
No, I've only seen a couple of episodes.
Yeah, me neither. Stupid show. Anyway, time for your question. I got one right. Woo! All right.
Let's go.
So, can you name one of the Christmas presents Harry gets in his second year?
One of the Christmas presents he gets a second year. Yes. He gets treacle fudge from Hagrid that he warms by the fire before he eats it.
Let me see if it. Yes, treacle toffee. It's probably just the British word for fudge. I don't know.
Is it toffee? Shoot.
I'll count it.
Okay.
Especially because you added the second part afterwards of
he also
warm it by the
gets
fire.
The Chudley Cannons book from Ron.
Yeah.
And he gets a quill from Hermione.
Dang. Go off, Andy. Okay.
Hey, so I did my homework today at work. I have a day job, and I was listening to the book all throughout work today. So I'm pretty sure I covered that a couple of hours ago.
Yeah, and he the easiest one is the every year Christmas sweater. Certainly.
Oh yeah.
All right, so we both got one. What's another one you got for me?
Okay, I will ask a Chamber of Secrets specific one. When Harry is spying on Draco in Borgin and Burke's, Draco asks his dad for a gift. What item does he point to?
Oh, I even did a podcast about this episode, about this moment. He asks his dad for a gift. And I'm going to have to take a random guess. Does he ask for the necklace?
He does not ask for the necklace.
What does he ask for?
He asks for the Hand of Glory.
And he gets it later.
And his dad says, "Does my son look like a thief?"
That I loved that comeback of when Borgin says like best friend of like thieves and whatever, and he goes, "Does my son look like?" Yeah, no, I said I hope my son will amount more to more than a thief. Such a good line. The Malfoys are evil people, but they got sick lines. I'll give that to them. All right, so it's 1-1. 1-1. You've asked your second question. This is your second question, though. Who does Harry turn into, and who does Ron turn into when they take polyjuice potion?
Okay. Harry turns into Goyle, and Ron turns into Crab.
Ding, 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 ding. All right. Good job, Andy. So it's 2-1. Oh, my gosh. The guests are just whooping me. Now, normally we just do 2 questions, but you said you had a few more, and some of my hosts like to do a few more, so that's fantastic.
Sure.
Hit me with some others.
Just for fun. For funsies, a galleon is described as being the size of what?
Oh, wow. This will be a complete guess. I have no idea. I think it's described as being the size of a walnut.
Wrong. It is described as being the size of a hubcap.
A hubcap?
Exactly. It's an absurd description.
Where does it say that?
I feel like it has to be a hyperbole. I'm pretty sure that they first make that reference in like the 4th book. I'm not positive, but yeah, I've always wondered because like a hubcap would be the size of twice the size of my face, and so it has to be a hyperbole. But
yeah, that's crazy. Because I would have thought maybe year 1 when you're a little kid and things seem bigger than they are.
Sure.
Like a shout out to, because one time I said this, one of my Filch theories I got from you guys on streaming things, because it goes with that of the movies and books kind of trace their perspective of him, where first he seems menacing, and then as you get older, you realize he's kind of a joke.
Yeah, totally.
That's from streaming things, everybody. I didn't come up with that. That's from a past podcast.
And then my last one was, what is Ron's favorite team?
The Chudley Cannons.
And for bonus points, what's their rank?
They're last. Dead last.
I don't know if it's last. It's 9th. If it's out of 9, then yeah.
It is dead last. In fact, we talked about this in some previous episode where it was like they used to have a slogan that was like, fight the good fighter, like we're the fiercest. It was something like hype, something cool.
Okay.
And their new slogan, which is really funny, was like, just go and enjoy yourselves. Like it's something like that. I'll send it to you after this. But
that's a real Hufflepuff slogan of theirs.
Bunch of duffers, really. Oh my goodness. Okay. Oh, I don't really have any extra questions for you this time around. I apologize, but this is already going to be a freaking long episode because these are like the two thickest chapters of the book. And so much so that like I took good notes on the first chapter, and on the second chapter, I was like, let's just get to the end. So the guests are still in the lead. I don't know by how much, but they're definitely leading. Good job, Andy. You held
Thanks,
it down,
man.
kept the lead
Appreciate
for the
it.
guests. So the world apparently knows the first 2/3 of this book better than I do. A shame.
That's my goal in life is to represent the world in Harry Potter knowledge to the best of my ability.
And you've done it well today.
Thank you.
Without further ado, we're going to move on now to our chapter coverage. Not so fast. Fortunately for you all, Futureberry does know the score. And after this week's Quizzitch segment, the guests have taken the lead by 1 point. Again, I was a little confused about the score for most of this season, but the guests are leading with a score of 9-10. So good job, guests. Not upset about that at all. However, before we can return to the podcast, we must still answer the audience Quizzitch question from last week, as well as give you your new question. So last week, your question was, what was the score of the Quidditch match when Gryffindor called timeout against Slytherin? Now, you didn't have to even read the chapter last week because, as one of my listeners pointed out, I said it in the episode. Silly me. But the score of the game was 60-0. Congratulations if you got that right. Now, for your question this week, in what class does Ginny sit next to Colin Creevey? It's a blink and you'll miss it line, but in what class does Ginny Weasley sit next to Colin Creevey? That's your question for this week. If you want to submit your answers to that question, you can email me at theretoldpodcast@gmail.com or send me a message on Instagram at theretoldpodcast. Anyway, back to the show. So anybody new, the way that this works is Andy and I will recap the chapters. And Andy, I'll kind of do what Kit does of just talking about things, recap scene by scene. And if you want to hop in at any point, feel free to do so. If you want to let me ramble for 5 minutes, you can do that too. It doesn't freaking matter. It's going to be a good time. We're going to talk some Potter. And then at the end of each chapter discussion, we will have our favorite lines segment where we will highlight just what it sounds like, our favorite lines from the chapter, things that stood out to us. And then we have a Transfiguration section where we will highlight differences that the movies made from the books. Going to be kind of cool when, a year and a half from now, we can talk about movie differences that the TV show made.
Yeah.
Let's get hype, people. Looking forward to it. And then the other section was the Golden Snitch section where I highlight some deep lore bits, some tids and bits. And then we'll do the whole thing over again for the next chapter. And at the very end of the episode, we'll get into our restricted section. We could also call it the Chamber of Secrets for this episode, where we will talk about spoiler-related things. Because, while we sometimes might mention a spoiler here and there, we try not to and try to keep the feeling of the books alive of when you were first reading them. So hopefully, you won't need to worry about spoilers if you haven't read the books already. So anyway, let's get into it. Starting off, my overall thoughts on this chapter, I said, and so this is chapter 11, our first chapter that we're covering, and it is, the title of it, I have it right here. Oh my goodness.
The Dueling Club.
Thank you, Andy. The Dueling Club. This has given me such an appreciation for how you guys do the show, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I couldn't, I feel like it's easier with a book, but with a TV show, having to pause, write things down.
Oh, dude.
Got to be ridiculous.
Our spouses hate us. We are a nightmare to watch TV and film with because it's literally anything. I feel like I watch with just a critic's eye or a podcaster's eye for everything nowadays. Even if we're not covering it, I'm like, hang on, rewind. What did they say? Who's that actor? And it drives Sarah insane. But I can't help it. It's just who we are now.
Yeah, my wife and I love anime. And the thing that I constantly will pause and Google is, who's that voice actor? I've heard that voice actor before. Mm-hmm. I know that. Who is that one? But yeah, so the Dueling Club, my overall thoughts, thick chapter. There's a very dense chapter. It's like 26 pages, 20, at least in my copy. It was a lot. And Harry has the worst luck in this chapter. And there are also some bad leaps in logic that some of the other people take, and we'll get to that. Did you have any overall thoughts before we begin?
Yeah, I think that this is a fantastic chapter. When I was copying down my favorite lines, I did not really focus on the second chapter at all because there were zingers in this one, and I thought that the writing was just fantastic. J.K. Rowling is such a talent and was really knocking it out of the park, especially in this episode. And we get some big stuff in both of these chapters, like not just big for the book, but big for the series as a whole. I think we get our first use of Expelliarmus ever.
Yeah.
And that is a big deal.
It's a huge deal.
We can talk about that in a different section, but yeah, this episode's great. Or this chapter's great.
That's fine. It's fine. It's what you're used to.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's get to it. Harry wakes up with some new bones in his arm. And after breakfast, Pomfrey tells him that he's good to go. I like the part where he goes searching for Ron and Hermione and he can't find them. You know, he's like, I think of that meme of, what's the guy? It's like, what's that meme?
That's Vince from Pulp Fiction.
Yes. That's where he's kind of, he's like looking around like, where are my friends? I thought they cared. And it's so relatable because I remember like in middle school, anytime something happened with me or like I'd go to school, I was the kid that I wouldn't say it was my birthday. And I'm like, my friends better remember that it's my birthday. I was a nuisance, you know? And I feel like that's Harry's feelings of like, they don't care. They all forgot. Because he can't find Ron and Hermione. He's like, wait a minute. I'm the main character. Why aren't they waiting for me? He runs into Percy, who's super happy about Gryffindor taking the lead in the House Cup. And this was interesting. I took note of this because I was always curious of like, I don't know if this gives us the answer, but I was always curious how many points is a Quidditch win worth for each house anytime that they win? Is it like the full point total of the game? But here he says it's 50 points. At least they won 50 points from the game. I thought that was interesting.
Don't recall what the score was in the match, so I'm not sure. I always assumed that it was the difference between the winners versus the losers. So if you won by 50 points, then you earned 50 points towards the House Cup.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll check that later, and maybe Future Barry will pop in and mention something. But yeah, I was always curious. Like, so we know it can at least be the total score, but they won 50 points. Percy's hyped about that. And then I wrote down any Hoozle, which is from Streaming Things. I have said it on this podcast before, people know. Harry goes to the girls' bathroom to find his friends. And Andy, they looked suspicious. Like, it's not a good scene when he walks in. Ron and Hermione are bunched up in the stall together, you know. Who knows what's going on? He comes in and he hears like a clunk.
Well, I love that Percy said, I don't know where they are. Hopefully Ron's not in another girl's bathroom. So anyway, Harry went back to the girl's bathroom and found his friends there, of course.
He's like, oh, good thinking, Percy. So all three of them get into that small little stall, and Hermione is basically making prison wine. You know, she's got the potion in the toilet, brewing it up.
Ron's drunk. They got the hooch.
I know. Like in Britain, they start drinking earlier. People. They gossip some about Colin being petrified, and Dobby's talk with Harry the night before, and Malfoy potentially being the one who opened the Chamber of Secrets. Ron has this theory that maybe it was Malfoy's dad, and now he's taught Malfoy how to do it. On Monday, the whole school's talking about Colin and what could have happened. Let's see. I wrote. I like the part about the first years all huddled together. Like, they're not going to get us, whoever it was.
Safety in numbers.
Makes me think of in the fourth book and fourth movie when it's like, why do they have to travel in packs?
Oh, right, yeah.
So Ginny is super sad about Colin. Andy, what did you think of the way Fred and George were cheering her up?
What was it? It was they were taking turns covering themselves in hair and boils and stuff. And
like jumping out.
You know, I'm the youngest in my family, but if I had a little sister, I'd like to think that I would have tormented her every bit as much as they are. That is horrifying. And in hindsight, so how much of the rest of the plot are we discussing here? Or is this...
We'll
this is
I know
is
what you want to get into. We'll get into restricted section
for
that.
Gotcha.
But
so I'll just say that... if nothing else, it is a indicator that even if these guys are not very serious, they're pretty talented if they are able to transfigure themselves.
You can talk about their
on a
workshop.
whim.
You can talk about their shop, that kind of stuff. I thought you were talking about some other stuff.
Yes,
But,
well, I was starting to talk about the other stuff and kind of pivoted there.
Good.
But-
Nice save. Nice save. Listeners,
Thank
did you see that? That's a pro at work. But anyway, what my favorite, one of the things that made me think of, I am a twin. I'm actually wearing.
Are you?
Yeah, my twin sister just sent me this shirt. I don't know if you can see it.
Love it.
It said
Life
my
is
shirt
better with the twin.
Yeah, that's what my shirt says, listeners. And it was just recently our birthday, and it made me think of when I was a kid, our cat died, and it was my twin sister's cat. And so we're in like middle school when this happens. And so my twin sister runs to her room, locks herself in the room, and my older brother, he goes up to her room to try to cheer her up, but she's locked the door. He's knocking, trying to cheer her up. She eventually just goes quiet. There's nothing happening. So I don't know why, but he pivots his tactic and he starts scratching on the door and going, meow, 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 when this girl's cat just died. So that's what this made me think of whenever I saw Fred and George acting like that.
I have to be honest here. I heard half of your story just now because you blew my mind, and I am an idiot and my brain just doesn't work right sometimes. When you said our birthday, I was like, what do you mean our birthday? And I was like, he's a twin, you idiot. What do you mean our birthday? Yeah, like I was sitting there like just trying to do the math in my head. Wow, sorry. Anyway,
No problem.
Yeah,
No,
twins have the same birthday. That's a thing.
We do. And what's funny is you've actually fallen prey to one of my bits that I do with people, where I will tell somebody when mine and my sister's birthday is approaching. I'll tell them, like, it was a Tuesday last week, and I was like, a few days before, I would tell people, hey, my twin sister's birthday is this Tuesday. And I like to literally, you'd be shocked. It's 50-50 of the people that get what I just said, because half of them will go, tell her we said happy birthday. And then they'll walk away. And then the other half, they go, wait a minute. You're saying it's your birthday. I'm like,
I would have been in
me.
the first half, man. Absolutely.
Anyway, back to the podcast. We also hear that the Hogwarts students are starting to deal out essential oils and all that good stuff, because makes me think of book 6, and we'll talk about that in restricted section. But they tell Neville, because Neville is the one who buys a whole bunch of it. They're like, you're a pureblood, you're going to be fine. And he goes, I'm basically a squib. I need this. You can never be too safe, Neville. Buckle up. So the trio, as well as Malfoy, all opt to stay at Hogwarts over the holidays, which I thought was interesting, because the year before, Malfoy was like, only losers stay over the holidays.
Right.
So it's pretty sus that Malfoy's staying behind this time around. They decide that the holidays will also be their best time to use the polyjuice potion in order to enact their plan to ask him some questions. Crap of all craps, though, they still need some ingredients, and the only place to get them is from Snape's private stores. So the trio concocts an awesome plan in order to get their goals. Andy, it's time for a heist. All right, I can picture the Mission Impossible music. Just saw that movie this weekend. Let's see. Hermione. What is it? Hits them with the classic, we need a diversion. And Harry isn't too thrilled about it, but he's like, bet, I got you.
Mm-hmm.
When they're in potions class, Hermione gives Harry the signal, which is a head nod, very discreet, very creative.
Do the thing.
Yeah. And Harry ducks under his desk, lights a firework, and launches that sucker, even more discreet. And, well, if it's a distraction they wanted, then they got one, because Goyle's swelling solution explodes and splashes half the classroom, causing tons of people to become severely deformed. Snape tells them kids to shut up and come see him. I love that. Like, they're all just cut, like, huge noses, huge lips, sidestepping jokes. But Snape tells them all, shut up, come see him for a deflating draft. And I did notice some forced symbolism here. One of my favorite things that I hear is when people go, I wonder if the author was trying to like allude to this, when it's like, that's a stretch, my guy. So a forced symbolism moment here is that Malfoy, his nose gets giant. So I'm like, he's nosy. And then Snape gives out the deflating draft. And I'm like, because he deflates the students, takes the winds out of theirs. See, I'm clever, y'all. I caught that. Snape finds the firework and is super suspicious of Harry. He can't prove nothing, though. Good news, Hermione got the stuff. So the trio run to the girls' bathroom and mix up their toilet potion. And now it's just 2 weeks till it's ready. 1 week passes, and a new club has started at Hogwarts, the Dueling Club. And why is it being started? To teach these kids how to fight.
Oh, yeah, like you do for second graders.
I was trying to think of like what the equivalent of what this would be in the Muggle world. Like, I was like, is this more like teaching the kids to box or like actual shooting, gun dueling?
Oh, yeah. So there was a bomb threat, and therefore we started MMA. For everybody.
You guys are going to be ready for this monster, whatever it is. Yeah, that's freaking great. Like, you're literally, these wands are basically guns. And you're like, all right, kids, you got to know how to use these suckers out there. Anyway, they got Harry's 2 favorite people in the world on the job, Lockhart and Snape, teaching the class. Ron's like, bro, wouldn't it be great if they just like, killed each other? I was like, holy crap, Ron, calm down. Lockhart says, time to teach y'all to fight. Watch me and Snape first, but just to assuage their fears, he's like, don't worry, I won't kill Snape. And Harry is thinking Lockhart is crazy. And I wrote down, I like this line where he says, it's when Snape's looking at Lockhart. Snape's upper lip was curling. Harry wondered why Lockhart was still smiling. If Snape had been looking at him like that, he'd have been running as fast as he could in the opposite direction. I was like, I don't know what he's about to get into.
Hey, say what you will about Snape. He's a bad mother effer, man.
Mm-hmm. He's pretty sick.
That dude's dangerous.
And he whoops Lockhart because Lockhart says, time to teach y'all to fight. So Lockhart and Snape face off. They bow. And on the count of 3, 1, 3, Snape knocks the stuffing out of Lockhart. Hits him with the disarming charm, Expelliarmus. We'll be talking about that in the restricted section. Mm-hmm. After Lockhart goes flying, Hermione's like, oh my gosh, is he okay? And we get the boys, who cares? I love that. Lockhart gets up talking some smack, but then when he sees Snape, he's like, you know what? How about we don't fight each other again? And we get the children to fight instead. And it's at this point that I finally heard Steve's voice in my head doing the Stranger Things.
We love a good child's fight. Yeah, absolutely.
So I've never seen Streaming Things. It's Dr. Brenner. Sorry, it's your namesake.
Yes, Dr. Brenner is he's kind of like the mastermind of the program in which gifted children are fostered. But we have just a running gag that Dr. Brenner is just a big fan of adolescent violence. So they're just he loves the idea of just
I love a good child fight.
Yeah.
I've never seen the show. I just do Steve's impression because I just hear that. So Dr. Brenner's wanted to call in on the show today. Well, hello. I heard something was going on. We have a child fight in Hogwarts Castle. Simply wonderful. So they partner up the kids. Harry and Ron try to do the thing of getting with your best bro, and Snape says, nuh-uh. And I like that Harry goes, okay. And then he just steps towards Hermione, and he's like, not her either. So Snape partners Harry up with his third favorite person, Malfoy. And Hermione gets partnered up with video game Abby from The Last of Us. Basically, the way that they describe this girl, Harry doesn't hold back. He says, Malfoy strutted over smirking. Behind him walked a Slytherin girl who reminded Harry of a picture he'd seen in Holidays with Hags. Dang! She was large and square, and her heavy jaw jutted aggressively. Hermione gave her a weak smile that she did not return. Daggone. So poor Hermione.
Have the valedictorian fight Amanda Nunes. And that'll go well.
So Lockhart's plan was not a good one for this child fight session because rather than have just one group go like and watch them, to be able to supervise them, I don't know how he expected this to go and how he expected to supervise all these child fights at one time, but he's got a whole great hall full of kids. And he's like, all right, y'all, 1, 2, 3. And Draco doesn't wait for the 3, though. Little booty hole that he is. He blasts Harry with a spell, and Harry returns fire with a Rictum Sempra. Andy, do you know what that spell does?
Rictum Sempra, that is the tickling spell.
It's the tickling spell. He just wanted to give him a little tickle. So Harry tickled Malfoy, and Malfoy makes Harry dance. Interestingly enough, Snape helps Harry out of the situation with a bit of Finite Incantatum, which is they give that to Hermione in the Quidditch match in the movie. But that's how it ends the curse. Anyway, the teachers call for a halt to the child fighting, and it doesn't look good. Neville and Justin have taken each other down. Apparently Ron beat the frick out of Seamus. Millicent and Hermione have abandoned their wands entirely and are just wrestling. Like got Hermione in a headlock. Like, oh no.
This and then all the kids gather around and just yell, fight, fight, fight.
This is Lord of the Flies going on in here. Lockhart says, you know what? How about we practice self-defense first instead of attacking each other? You know what? Say this about him. He learns from his mistakes. Mm-hmm. He may do it very wrong the first time, but he'll make some changes. But I don't know why he says that, because when he calls Malfoy and Harry up to fight each other, he goes, Harry, this is how you protect yourself. And he tries to do the spell and he drops his wand. And then he says one of the most suspicious things I've ever heard. Whoops, my wand is a little overexcited. And
well, I had that highlighted and I wasn't going to say anything, but I've used that line once or twice.
Again, not going to include this part of the pod, but anyway, let's see. So he says something wild to a child, and I need to say this in my wrestler voice. Time for Harry and Draco, round 2.
Got you for 3 minutes.
That's right. Draco actually waits for 3 this time, and then launches a snake at Harry. Not helping the Heir of Slytherin vibes, though. Everyone freaks out. Lockhart says, I got this, but he just launches that sucker into the sky, and it falls right back to the ground. Good news, though.
How is that as scary as it is to them? It's a snake. I don't. So like my wife is super afraid of snakes, right? But like there's so many horrifying beasts that you could theoretically summon that would be like, oh my God, you know what I mean? But like he didn't summon a dragon. He summoned this tiny little thing, presumably that's just like slithering around, and everybody loses their ever loving minds.
That's a good. I think if it was just, and I could be wrong entirely, but maybe if it was just a snake in and of itself, like in a vacuum, but it's like not that scary. But given the whole Heir of Slytherin thing going on, maybe they have
that's
that.
True. Context is important.
But I don't think they even know, like, they don't know what Slytherin's monster is. It's like, again, one of the funniest things I saw was somebody saying, man, I can't believe I never knew what Slytherin's monster was growing up, whenever like all these hints were included in the book of like, what's on the cover? What's the symbol of the house? It's like, how did we not guess this?
Right. Yeah, seriously.
Anyway, so Lockhart just launches it to the air. It falls back down. Good news is it's pissed now. All right. So we made it angry. I think of Gabriel Iglesias, the Fluffy, the comedian, go like, it's angry. It's angry. If you get that, great, listener. The snake goes to give Justin Finch Fletchley a little kiss. And Harry says, stop that. You need consent before you do that. Harry looks at Justin like, got your back, bro. You're welcome. But Justin just goes, what's wrong with you? And runs on out of there. Pretty rude of Justin, not gonna lie. Strangely enough, though, everybody else is kind of freaked out too, and Ron, the only one with some sense, is like, bro, we gotta get out of here. Like, you need to leave. So they head up to Gryffindor Tower. Ron says, bro, you never told us you could talk to snakes. And Harry says, it's no big deal. I've talked to one before. We talked to some about Brazil. It was a chill conversation. And it's a really funny line, though, because Ron's like, he told you he never saw Brazil? Yeah. He's like, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
Not that big a deal. They make a long story short, they tell Harry this doesn't look good for him. And what is that? Bad. Oh, what did I write down? Do you guys ever get your notes messed up?
Oh, all the time, man. Usually I call myself out on it and say, I don't know what this means anyway.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I thought I said bad. I thought I wrote bad oaks. I wrote bad optics, Harry. In hindsight, the worst part is when you make a note for a joke and the joke isn't that funny. So you just held everybody up for a side comment that you could have breezed past. Anyway, doesn't look good because Salazar Slytherin was a parcel tongue. Harry says, they ain't related. And we get the line from Hermione, for all we know, you could be. I don't know why that line stands out in the movie. The next day, Harry wants to go to apologize to, not to Ernie. Why did I write Ernie? He wants to go apologize to Justin Fletchley and explain himself. But the one class he has with him, herbology, gets canceled. So he's got to go searching for him around the school. I do like that during that scene, Hermione's getting her butt whooped in chess because it harkens back to book 1 where it said Hermione wasn't particularly good at chess. Something they thought was good for her. That she was actually bad at something. Yeah. And it actually calls out the fact that, hey, maybe Ron knows some strategy still. At one point, though, he goes to the library, and this part hurts me as a Hufflepuff. I'm a Hufflepuff, and
okay, I should have asked.
That's all right. I say it in almost every podcast episode, so people will know. Basically, Harry drops some. Harry drops some eaves on a group of puffs, talking mad crap about him.
Dropping some eaves, sir.
Don't turn me into anything unnatural. A boy named Ernie basically is telling all of them that Harry is definitely the heir of Slytherin, and he's coming for Justin now. I have to highlight the Salazar nickname where it says, this was so dumb to be like, there's so many creative names in these books, but also sometimes it's like not that creative of a lot, because it said they called him Serpent Tongue. Clever.
They called him Snake Man.
He was also, Ernie, his reasoning is so dumb when they ask him, like, but Ernie, Harry defeated the Dark Lord, like he's a good guy. And Ernie goes, yeah, but he was just a baby. Only a dark, magical, powerful baby could have killed Lord Voldemort. I was like,
it was a Nazi baby.
Harry's a Nazi baby. I heard he hates puppies too. As I was taking notes, I went on an emotional roller coaster with Ernie over this next scene because he's wanting to stand his ground because Harry appears and he's like, I gotcha. And they're all like, oh, shoot, he hurt us. And Ernie stands his ground. He's being dumb, but he's being brave, and some of these parts I highlighted because Harry said he wanted to talk to Justin. What do you want with him? Said Ernie in a quavering voice. And Harry says, I just want to explain what happened. And he goes, we were all there. We saw what happened. And Harry's like, then you noticed, I was doing a good thing. All I saw, said Ernie stubbornly, though he was trembling as he spoke, was you speaking parcel tongue and chasing the snake toward Justin. I didn't chase it at him, Harry said, his voice shaking with anger. Didn't even touch him. It was a very near miss, said Ernie. And this is my favorite part. And in case you're getting ideas, he added hastily, I might tell you that you can trace my family back through 9 generations of witches and warlocks, and my blood's as pure as anyone. I don't care what your blood. But
here's my 23andMe results.
Yeah. Also, you're a loser. But anyway, Harry gets ticked. So Harry gets ticked, rolls on out of there. And while he's rolling, who does he run into? Hagrid. And Hagrid's appearance is wild because he's a half giant man wearing a snow-covered ski mask and holding a dead rooster. Dead rooster, not important at all. Don't worry about that, everybody. But I had to look up what it said. He was wearing a snow-covered balaclava.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no idea what that was. I had to Google it. And I was like, oh,
it's like what you wear when you're robbing a bank.
I know. I was like, Hagrid, that looks that's a terrifying sight. Anyway, they talk and Harry keeps moving, goes down a super sus hallway. He should know by now that he's got to stop doing that because, it talks about the hallway is dark, all the candles blown out. There's a cold wind blowing through there. It's like, Harry, don't do it. So good news and bad news for Harry. Good news, he finds Justin. Yay! He'd been looking for him. Bad news, Justin's been petrified. Boo. Our boy can't catch a break. Also, nearly headless Nick is petrified too, and there's some spiders there. That's kind of weird. Anyway, make a long story short, Peeves finds Harry, makes a ruckus, and everyone appears, and things don't look good for him. McGonagall shows up and says to Harry that we got to go talk to Daddy Dumbledore. But anyway, that's the end of the chapter. Yay! All right. On to our favorite lines from Chapter 11, The Dueling Club. Andy, you got any?
Yeah, I got a couple. I wanted to shout out Ron's banger line to Harry. He says, "So Dobby stopped us from getting on the train and broke your arm." He shook his head. "You know what, Harry? If he doesn't stop trying to save your life, he's going to kill you." I love that line.
That's a fantastic line. I had that one too. One of my other favorites I had on one. I always say the page number, and it's like nobody has the same copy. When Gilderoy is talking to all of the students, he says, "Now Professor Dumbledore has granted me permission to start this little dueling club to train you all in case you ever need to defend yourselves, as I myself have done on countless occasions. For full details, see my published works." I like hearing like that in the little like disclaimer voice,
right?
But definitely doesn't work for Lockhart because he'd be like, "For full detail." In case you didn't know. What's another one you got?
Next one I'm going to call out just because it is absurd. So this is a single sentence. Both Neville and Justin were lying on the floor panting. Ron was holding up an ashen-faced Seamus, apologizing for whatever his broken wand had done. But Hermione and Millicent Bulstrode were still moving. Millicent had Hermione in a headlock, and Hermione was whimpering in pain. Both their wands lay forgotten on the floor. She uses 4 semicolons in this sentence. I feel like she did this on a dare. That is such a long sentence. I mean, it's very effective, and she says what happens, but there are 4 semicolons in this sentence. This lady is like giving us a lesson in punctuation, and I just wanted to give her the credit where it's due because that's intense.
That's hilarious. I didn't catch that, that it was all one sentence. I need to tell my wife that. My wife's an English teacher for high school.
Oh, nice.
And she loves grammar. So I'm going to make a note to tell her about that particular. There are 4 semicolons. I had a British teacher in high school, and she was a British lady, old British. I had a McGonagall as one of my teachers.
She's my favorite character.
She's amazing. But I had a real life McGonagall for my English teacher. And there was one time she wrote down on one of my papers, and I had no idea what it meant. It wasn't a good thing. I didn't know it at the time, but she wrote the unmitigated gall. And I asked her about it, and she goes, she says, "I can't believe you would turn such a thing into me. I can't believe you would have the unmitigated gall to write that down and include it in an essay from my class." And I was like, all right, context, it doesn't sound that good anymore.
What does unmitigated mean?
Gaul like France? But anyway, one of my other favorite lines, "I know," said Harry. "I mean, that's only the second time I've ever done it. I accidentally set a boa constrictor on my cousin Dudley at the zoo once. Long story. But it was telling me it had never seen Brazil, and I sort of set it free without meaning to. And that was before I knew I was a wizard." "A boa constrictor told you it had never seen Brazil?" Ron repeated faintly. And I just like that because I do find it odd that he never told them that story.
Yeah.
But there's a lot he keeps to himself, so fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. You got another one?
Last one I'll call out is during the dueling club when Lockhart's training Harry on how to do how to block an unfriendly spell. It says, "Lockhart cuffed Harry merrily on the shoulder. 'Just do what I did, Harry.' What, drop my wand?" I love it.
Yes, that was the last one I wrote down too. And it said he couldn't hear him or didn't listen at least.
Right.
The last one I have as well is, "Do you want to tell me what's wrong with stopping a massive snake biting off Justin's head?" he said. "What does it matter how I did it as long as Justin doesn't have to join the headless hunt?" So we get a lot of sassy Harry in these books, and I love it. Freaking love it. Again, TV show people. I know by the time you're filming, this is going to be the biggest Harry Potter podcast in the world. So take my advice. More sassy Harry. Anyway, on to our Transfiguration section, which is differences that the movies made from the books. So just a always a note is that usually most of the changes aren't changes, but omissions, things they leave out,
Mhm.
and so I won't cover all the omissions, but some of the ones that stood out glaringly were like, there was no classroom fireworks scene when Harry goes to set off fireworks in order for them to get the potion ingredients. That doesn't happen at all. Kids don't get hit with the engorgement potion. It's for the best. It's for the best that they didn't include that scene. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, during the dueling scene, as previously mentioned, only Harry and Draco face off against each other in the big old Great Hall. Also, the setup is different as well, because in the movie, the like hall or the dueling platform is in the middle of the Great Hall. In the book, it said it was pressed against the wall, and so it was kind of like a stage, like when you're in high school theater or something like that. But anyway, the snake scene is different because Harry actually calms down the snake in the book. In the movie, it's like still try. It's like, no, I want to get him. I want to give him a kiss. I want to go after him. I want to get him. And then Snape has to burn him up. But in the book, Harry actually is successfully. He's like, hey, stop that. And the snake says, okay, I'll stop. I wrote down Snape's Longbottom line is about Ron in the movie, because whenever Lockhart says that they should have Longbottom and whoever the other person was fight each other, Justin, have them fight each other, Snape says the line about Neville of, oh, well, Neville causes problems with the simplest of spells. But in the movie, he says Ron's wand causes problems with the simplest of spells. So that was flipped.
That's a good change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it keeps Ron's thing in the forefront, especially for other things to come. And it's less Neville hate, so I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
I also wrote Nick doesn't change colors. So in the movie, when Nearly Headless Nick is petrified, he stays ghostly white. But in the book, it says he turned black,
which is also horizontal.
Oh, yeah. That's what the chapter art is.
Yeah.
Oh, I was looking at the chapter art like, that's crazy. What is that thing? It's so, like, I thought it was Seamus, because it said like he was ashen face and on the ground. And I was like, that's wild. Why does Seamus look like that? I'm glad you highlighted that. Thank you. And then the last one I have was Harry runs into Nick and Justin differently, because in the movie, it's just him in the hallway alone with them, and then Filch shows up, and then McGonagall shows up, and he goes. But in this one, Peeve shows up and it's like, Potty did it! Gets everybody, all the students out of the classroom. So anyway, that's all the transfigurations I have. And so now, did you have any you wanted to highlight? Anything there?
I think you covered it, man.
Yeah. So on to our golden snitch section. And these are little lore grabs, little tids and bits and behind the scenes things that maybe the average listener or fan might not know about. So the first one I have, Gilderoy Lockhart mentions that he fought a chameleon ghoul. And I was like, what is a chameleon ghoul? So checked it out. And listeners, usually you can find all this stuff on the Harry Potter wiki, unless it comes from somewhere deep in my memory bank. But the chameleon ghoul was a breed of ghoul that could disguise itself as an everyday object to avoid detection. The Revelio charm was capable of uncovering disguised chameleon ghouls. And Andy, you'll like this. The engorgement charm was the most useful offense against them. So
just make them beep. That'll fix everything.
He's taken care of. Don't worry. He's lost it. Oh, that's funny. All right, and then I wrote down bicorn horn and boomslang skin. Those are elements in the. They're very rare and very valuable things that you throw into a polyjuice potion. But I didn't make more notes about it, so sorry, listeners. Then I also have Flitwick, the dueling champion, because they mention that Professor Flitwick, Hermione does at least, that he was a dueling champion. And so on his wiki page, Harry Potter wiki page, it says, after completing his nastily exhausting wizarding tests, his newts, in his 7th year, Flitwick graduated from Hogwarts and then proceeded to become a master duelist and earn the title of dueling champion. And I like this. It's very specific. At some point. We're never told like what year it was or like how it went down. It's just at some point this happened. And he had a shelf full of trophies to prove it. His dueling feats were also noted in a book centered on dueling. So that's nifty. And then it's so funny that they say he's a dueling champion when half the time, like in class, he's like being whizzed around the room and thrown about. I love that. So anyway, the other one is the blood-sucking bugbear. Hagrid mentions this, and I was like, what the heck is a blood-sucking bugbear? It says, following the killing of 2 of his roosters, Hogwarts gamekeeper Rubeus Hagrid suspected that either a blood-sucking bugbear or foxes from the forest were responsible. But if you look it up, it says the bugbear is an imaginary creature historically used to frighten naughty children into behaving. Today, the term bugbear is used to describe something that is a source of dread, resentment, or irritation. Mm-hmm. So basically, it's some like, oh, what's it like? Go hunting for snipes? Is that what they say? What like?
I'm not familiar with that term.
There's some like. Again, I'm not a camper. My wife describes me as aggressively suburban, but or a rugged indoorsman. But there is some camping term that's like when a person is new to camping, you're like, oh, we got to go hunting for snipes. I think that's what it is. And it's a fake creature that doesn't exist. Gotcha. And that's basically what a bugbear is.
Last time I went camping, I threw my back out, putting my tent up, and went home. So
oh, no. My worst moment, my wife and I got into a debate over who was more country, her or I. I'm originally from Louisville, Kentucky, and but I've grown up mostly near Atlanta, Georgia, and she's grown up here the whole. But anyway, long story short, we both decided neither of us are that country. But she goes, because I said, babe, I do landscaping. That's pretty country of me, like pretty manly outdoors, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Plus, we're cousins.
Well, how much more country can you get? Anyway, she goes, Barry, when we went fishing, I had to bait your hook. And I was like,
man.
I was like, all right, you win, because I don't even like touching power bait. I'm like, that's nasty. Earlier when you said, who would be afraid of snakes? I was like, yeah, scaredy cats. I couldn't imagine. I go up and just stomp on those suckers. The other thing we get Professor Sinistra is dropped in this chapter. We hear her name for the first time. Her full name is Aurora Sinistra, and she was a witch who taught in the astronomy department at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Professor Sinistra was teaching by September of 1985, and her take on teaching the subject included studying the night sky with telescopes. Interestingly enough, I think she's also one of the characters in the movie who race swaps. Like originally,
really?
I don't know which, but I see 2 pictures of her on the wiki, and one she's African American, and the other she's white. The only time I can remember her in the movies is she and Alistair Moody, Mad-Eye Moody, they go out onto the dance floor together at the Yule Ball.
Is that who that is?
Yeah.
Okay,
that's who she is. But yeah, I don't know who. Maybe that's part of her magic. She can just change races. I don't know. Any hoozle. The last one I got is Lemon Drop. And Lemon Drop is the password to get into Dumbledore's office. Dumbledore has a history of naming things, giving his password the name of a sugary sweet or some sort of candy. And that's all I got for Golden Snitches. And so that wraps up chapter 11. Andy, are you good to go for chapter 12? Or
let's do it.
Fantastic. Let's pull ahead. Chapter 12, Polyjuice Potion. My opening thought, before I say anything about the chapter, listeners, this is why I wanted Andy on this particular episode. I'm about to drop some streaming things lore here. I don't know if he's going to appreciate me telling this, but one of my favorite moments in all of streaming things, and they even include Steve included it in the best of streaming things episode that year, was when they were covering the Harry Potter series. They get to Chamber of Secrets, and when the students take Polyjuice Potion to turn into other people, Steve basically says, and we're all thinking the same, or sorry, Andy says, we're all thinking the same thing, right? We're all thinking the same. If you were to take Polyjuice Potion, we'd all be doing the same thing, right?
Uh-huh.
And Steve and Kit are like, what are you talking about? And he goes, like, we'd all be looking at ourselves naked. That's what we would do. And
immediately. Yeah, I stand behind that, man.
Yeah. And it's so funny because they both go, dude, what the frick is wrong with you? And it's unfair. It's unfair because I've heard worse statements from both those boys' mouths. All right, especially Kit. I've heard some of the most diabolical things come from that man's mouth.
Oh, dude, there would be like a black market of like stolen hair polyjuice potion running around that school. It can go as far as you want it, as far as your imagination can go, man. But yeah.
So that is a glorious moment. And when I was thinking about it, I was like, I have to have Andy on for these chapters specifically. Like I schedule out all the people that will be on each chapter, and I was like, this block saved just for him. So hopefully it's a little bit of redemption. One thing I wanted to say was that whole incident of you saying that about polyjuice potion, it made me think, because half of my shows are just me referencing other things. It made me think of the Scooby-Doo movie. When Fred is inside Daphne's body and he goes, I can look at myself naked because he's in a dress. You know that scene?
Yeah.
Okay, thank goodness.
Dude, it's dead on. Yes.
Yeah. So, anyhoozle, this is why I already wrote that. So that's pretty much all I got on my opening thoughts for chapter 12. Did you have anything you wanted to say?
No. Yeah. I think that I was just going to say that I think that this is I don't know if seminal is the right word, but this is a extremely important chapter for this book as a whole. So again, just feel privileged to be on this particular episode with you.
You honor me. Harry is in Daddy Dumbledore's place, and he thinks, dang, Daddy's place is kind of sick. You know, he's looking at all the cool gizmos and gadgets that Dumbledore has in there. He's like, I wonder what he does with these. You'll never know, listener. The Sorting Hat catches Harry's eye, and Harry decides to give his crisis of identity a moment. You know, he's like, let's have a little chat with the hat. And Andy, have you heard the Jim Dale audio version of this book? Because earlier you referenced you were listening. Were you Stephen Fry or Jim Dale?
I've listened to them both. I think in general I prefer Jim Dale because I like his voices better, and also Stephen Fry gets really loud a lot of times in his performance, and so I typically put this on as comfort food. I've listened to them so many times that I'm only half listening, and I think that Stephen Fry is. He's an incredible emoter, but there's so much range in volume that it can be a little jarring. I think that Jim Dale, his voices are sometimes like very silly, like especially when he's voicing Hermione and she says Harry's name. He just has this way that he says like Harry. That it is ridiculous.
That sounds like that's the way you did it sounded identical to him doing Ron's like dumb voice in the Ministry of Magic with when the brain tentacles get on him. That's what that sounded like.
Yeah, dude. So while he is very silly, he also pronounces things annoying. This episode or this chapter is a prime example of that when he says Phoenix instead of Phoenix. No. Oh, it's awful.
I haven't.
Awful. But
that's crazy.
And he says Voldemort instead of Voldemort.
I think he changes that later in the series.
Does he? Okay.
I think so.
Well, at least early on, it's annoying. But overall, I prefer Jim Dale.
Yeah, I'm right with you. I haven't listened to him cover this chapter in a minute, but I do have a distinct remembrance of him doing the Sorting Hat's voice, which is very different from the movie. Because the Sorting Hat voice in the movie, it's like that deep, rich, be in your bonnet, Potter. It's very deep, rich, and it's high pitched and kind of squeaky in the audiobook. And so this whole scene, I'm just picturing that difference in my head as they're talking of the be in your bonnet. And I'm like, that's so. It was jarring how different it was. But anyway, the hat basically tells Harry, "Yep, you should have been in Slytherin." I do like the tease in that moment because he goes, I stood by what I said. And Harry thinks, his final decision. And the hat goes, you should have been in Slytherin. And Harry goes, well, screw you, hat. And he takes it off, puts it down and says, foot on you. And he walks away. And he ends that conversation. Then Harry meets Fawkes, Professor Dumbledore's Phoenix.
Phoenix.
His Phoenix. Cool looking bird. Actually, Harry, I said cool looking bird in my notes, but actually Harry describes it as very sickly. It's seen better days. And I love this line here on when he's talking about the phoenix. Harry was just thinking that all he needed was for Dumbledore's bird to die while he was alone in the office with it when the bird burst into flames.
That's
and
great.
Harry had to be like, gosh, dang, this is the last thing I need. And I like Harry's, like, it says he looks for a glass of water. He's like, what should I do? What should I do? Which also makes me think of, like, before book 1, are you a witch or not? What do you mean you're looking for a glass of water? I don't know if they've learned Aguamenti yet, but still.
Dude, I hope that they, in the TV show, give us more of a real reaction to Harry in this moment. Because I feel like in the movie it's kind of like whereas he should have been like, like he should be freaking out.
One of my absolute favorite bits of Kits is when he just says the
Right.
I love that so much. Always good for a chuckle. So the bird burns up and Dumbledore shows up and tells Harry not to worry. That's just one of his little tricks. And Dumbledore gives me the vibes of an owner talking about the tricks his pet can do. Because he's like, oh, he's a fiend. Like, I have a Dutch Shepherd. They're wonderful. They're like the dogs that the police use.
Okay.
And they're so well behaved. You know, I can do so many tricks with my dog. I love it. I can throw the ball. I can tell him to stop mid-run. He'll stop. I tell him to come back. You know, like he's so obedient. And
mine can eat and poop. They're very skilled.
I can eat and poop some. I'll be obedient. I do tricks. Streaming Things fans will get that. But anyway, oh my gosh, freaking Pippin as Phoenix or as Fox, would be funny. But like, because Dumbledore says he's really very handsome most of the time. Wonderful red and gold plumage, fascinating creatures. They can carry immensely heavy loads. Their tears have healing powers, and
he said, looking at the camera.
Just so you know. That's not important at all, Andy. I don't know why you made a note of that. Anyway, Dumbledore and Harry are about to start talking about what just happened, and then Hagrid rushes in and says, bro. Oh, no. I completely messed up my note. I wrote, bros, you got. I meant to say Hagrid the bro, but bro works just as dude. Dude, Harry, totally not the heir of Slytherin, bro. I was just with him, and he's just like so pitted, bro. He was listening, man. But anyway, he says, I'm trying to do his voice. I'm trying to remember the line in the movie. He says, like, I'll swear in front of the Ministry of Magic. But anyway, he's like, I'll vouch for Harry. He didn't do nothing. He was with me right before it. Remember, Barry was just talking about the balaclava and how he didn't know what that meant. I was all earlier. Anyway, Dumbledore says, chill, man. I don't think it was Harry. He does ask Harry, though, if he'd like to share anything at all. Anything at all. And Harry thinks of all the things he could and should share and just goes, nope.
This is the opportunity to end the book right now. If you're honest with me,
just anything.
I can solve all of the issues. Just tell me.
But you know what? I've been caught by this trick before from adults. Like, I remember one time I was when I was in high school, my class was getting in trouble left and right. And I forgot what we did this particular time, but our schools, you know, private school, we called him the headmaster at our school. He wasn't the principal, he was the headmaster. He comes in and he goes, would you guys like to tell me why you think it is that I'm here? And it was genius. We told him 20 different things and he didn't know about 19 of them. He just knew the one. So I somewhat understand Harry's apprehension here, but I am shocked at how quickly this scene is in Dumbledore's office. Cause like,
oh yeah,
in the book, it's just a few paragraphs and all of a sudden he's back out of the first time we're in this really cool place looking at it, like all the awesome gizmos and gadgets and seeing all this stuff. And then bam, right out of there.
Mm-hmm.
As the holidays start to approach, most of the students do the smart thing and leave Hogwarts, you know, because it's a freaking security nightmare. What I wrote down, Andy, people are scared students are in danger, and I get that it's serious, but I love what Fred and George do. Okay, so I was trying to make a conversational note, Andy.
Oh, okay.
No, forget about it. But anyway, people are scared. Students are in danger, and I get that it's dangerous. But I love what Fred and George do. So I wrote it down here on page 210 in my copy. Get with it, everybody. Get my copy. Fred and George, however, found all this very funny. They went out of their way to march ahead of Harry down the corridor, shouting, "Make way for the heir of Slytherin! Seriously evil wizard coming through." And Percy tries to confront them. And Fred says, "Get out of the way, Percy. Harry's in a hurry." "Yeah, he's off to the Chamber of Secrets for a cup of tea with his fang servant." And I just loved all. And then it says George pretended to ward Harry off with a large clove of garlic. And I love this so much because I feel like this is something that maybe you guys believe in too. I'm a huge believer in humor. Not as to disguise things, but to just make things if you can laugh about something, you have some control over it. You know, and so
1,000,000%. Personally, my brother had skin cancer a few years ago, and I was making all the cancer jokes. And I was just I can't wait to see you look bald or see you be bald, man. You're going to look awful. It's going to be hysterical. My buddy just got diagnosed with diabetes, and it was a big deal because it was I don't know, type 1.5 diabetes
he was
or whatever.
Really fat.
Right. Well, he had blood sugar level 600 in the hospital for weeks. He went blind for a little while there. Wow. And I am making all of the Scott Malkinson jokes from South Park because I'm sitting there in the hospital with him, I'm Scott Malkinson, I have diabetes. I think it's important to have some levity in serious situations.
Yeah, and I'm a huge believer in that. I was talking to my pastor one time, and he goes, I think that's denial. And I was like, well, it's working. What are you talking about? I love, I don't know.
No,
I
it's
think, that's one of my favorite voices that Andy does on the podcast. What are you talking about? Leave me alone. No, yeah, and Harry believes in this too. Cause right afterwards it says Harry didn't mind. It made him feel better that Fred and George at least thought the idea of his being Slytherin's heir was quite ludicrous. Again, big fan of humor. Love the concept of it, of just you can if you can laugh about anything, you're much better off. Of course, time and a place. I believe in that. But I think, with your homies, with your bros, and with people you love, to be able to do something like this. And I think it's good too to realize you're not that big of a deal. You can be laughed at, and it's okay. Laugh with people. Anyway, it's Christmas time. Oh, wait, no. Before I say Christmas time, something I thought was really interesting was that it talked about Mr. and Mrs. Weasley going to Egypt for Christmas. And they were going there to visit.
And the kids just opt out of going to one of the most exotic and historically significant places in the world. They're no, we're cool. We'd rather hang out at school. Thanks.
But I thought this was really interesting because, I didn't know if this was a hole, a plot hole or not, because, it mentioned how crazy it was that they went to see Charlie in Romania in book 1, because that's why Weasley stayed behind the first time. And then at the beginning of book 3, this is a minor spoiler, but at the beginning of book 3, the Weasley family goes to Egypt to visit Bill, just as they're doing now, but they all go together as a family. But the only reason they're able to go is because Arthur won some sweepstakes and won a bunch of gold to pay for their trip. And I was like, wait, they just went to Egypt and now they're such a great trip. Let's go again. But I don't know. I didn't think they had money like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I just thought it was interesting.
Especially as we are about to find out, they just got hit with a massive fine. Mm-hmm. And so
50 galleons.
Being able to afford that seems unlikely.
50 hubcaps worth of gold. That's crazy. Anyway, so now it's finally Christmas. And the boys are awoken by Hermione walking into their dorm. Ron's like, ew, you're not supposed to be in here. It made me think of at the beginning of movie 4, Goblet of Fire, when Ron's like, bloody hell. When he sees,
bloody hell. I love his delivery of that line.
Honestly, get yourselves ready. So I also like Hermione's response to that, though, where she says, "Merry Christmas to you too," and just throws the present at him. Like, what a wonderful, jolly morning greeting you just gave me. So anyway, finally, Hedwig flies in and says sup to Harry. And I had forgotten that Hedwig had been mad at Harry this whole time, like ever since the incident with the Whomping Willow. And so what this means, because Harry even makes a note of this, like, oh, you're finally like talking to me again. And that means that Hedwig was pissed at Harry for 3 months and 25 days. She was like, I'm going to put you in like mental jail for a while. That's a long time.
That is a long time.
Yeah. And so I was like, I wonder if she just didn't bring him his mail for all that time. She's like, also, you have some packages that I haven't delivered for a bit. Anyway, it's present time and Harry gets some gifts. Andy, which one was your favorite?
I mean, as a literary nerd, I would have been most hyped about the quill, I think. My sister got me a big, beautiful feather quill one time for Christmas and a beginner's calligraphy thing. And dude, I was signing all kinds of pieces of paper with this big fancy pen and just loved it,
Have you taken those like any like calligraphy classes?
No. I'm not a nerd.
Well, I only asked because I was going to make fun of it. I see these videos now
as you push away your set of fancy
stupid,
pens.
Really. No, and I see these videos now of like I'll see them on threads because on Instagram now, if you scroll, you'll see a little thread option of like, oh, look at this video. But it'll be these calligraphy videos of people. They'll write like the letter A, normal. They'll write a normal letter A and then they'll scratch it out and be like, nuh-uh, don't write it that way. And then they draw all these fancy symbols that aren't the letter A at all. Like, that's not writing. What are you doing? That's crazy.
No, do this stupid squiggle instead.
It's my signature. My main job is I'm a pastor, and the first wedding that I performed for my friends was also funniest moment of the podcast in the last like month was when Steve said, like if I could have if any of my friends asked me to perform their wedding, I'd be there in a moment. And Kit goes, Andy, you should have asked him. And he was like, I did. What are you talking about? It was so freaking funny. Like that caught me so off guard. He was just like, I did it. What are you talking about? But I say all that just to say that on the first signature, because I have to sign the marriage license as the officiant. The first time I did it, I learned how to do my signature, like not in letters or print for this wedding. And I have it in pen. I'm writing. I have a picture of it to this day. I messed up the B. And so I squiggled it out. So on this couple's wedding certificate, on their license, you see a squiggled out B. And then
you didn't commit.
I didn't commit.
Oh man,
I was too inexperienced to the ways, and it was. I regret it. I wish I didn't do it. But, people all the time say I have no regrets. That's a lie. I do. I have plenty. That's one of them. Anyway, so where were we? My favorite one was also the exact word, the luxury eagle feather quill, which sounds really fancy. So Christmas dinner in the Great Hall is lit. They got some awesome decorations. They're singing carols. Hagrid's turned up on eggnog. They're pulling a prank on old Percy.
I love that Hagrid's just getting drunk all the time.
Every single year. He's like, but it's Christmas. What are you talking about?
That's what you do.
That's how you celebrate the birth of Jesus, So they pull a little prank on Percy and they're eating pudding. What's not to enjoy? Hermione pulls them out of there after their third helping of pudding. That's listener, third helping, because I'm going to bring that up. And she says, time to get to work, boys. And she explains the plan to them to get Crabbe and Goyle's hair. And she gives the air of like, look, I've done the whole project. Y'all just have to do this one thing. And I've even planned it out for you. Just do this one part. Unsurprisingly, even though they're skeptical, Hermione's plan to drug Crabbe and Goyle does work. again, wild at Hogwarts, this stuff's going on. I do like how it says that. So this is why I mentioned the third helping, because when it talks about Crabbe and Goyle, it says they stayed in the Great Hall eating until their fourth helping. So I feel like it was just a subtle hint to say, yeah, but they're worse and more gluttonous than Harry and Ron because they had fourth helpings, not just three.
Right. And as a kid reading this at age 12, I think that they're eating like snack packs because I'm not aware that British pudding means dessert. And so I'm like, these dudes are just smashing tapioca for like hours.
Dude, the one that throws me off all the time, I should just Google it because I have that power. But porridge, they talk about porridge. And to me, that's soup. Like when people say, I think of, freaking Willy Wonka, and they were saying, we're eating cabbage porridge. And so that's what I think. And so when it talks about at breakfast time, they're eating porridge, pouring sugar into their porridge. I think they mentioned that in book 1. Yeah. I was like, who's putting sugar in soup? But I think somebody explained to me that it's cereal. It's their word for cereal. I don't know if that's true.
Oh, I always thought it was like oats.
It could be. I've never looked it up.
No idea.
Porridge and oats. That sounds like a thing.
Headcanon. I'm just going to assume that it's soup from now on.
Anyway, back to so they had their fourth helpings. They drug Crabbe and Goyle, and they hide them in a closet, steal their shoes like you do, and off they go to meet Hermione in the girls' bathroom. Again, just these words leaving my mouth talking about 12-year-olds is just so crazy. She has a hair from Millicent Bulstrode. Wink, wink. Forgot to mention that. And I'm going to breeze past this part because at this point I was tired of taking notes. But they make clear that they have 1 hour to be Crabbe and Goyle and Millicent once they change. The plan is to go to the Slytherin common room and question Malfoy. So they bottoms up. They all take their potion, and Harry and Ron transform and are ready to go. But something happened with Hermione, and she's like, nah, y'all go on ahead. And they're like, yeah, okay. So they go off, which is funny to me because it's like this whole thing was her plan. And so the moment when she says, I can't do it, they like question her one time, like, are you sure? I'm sure, because I even think they say like, we know you're not really Millicent. We know you're not really ugly. And I think they just assume, like, I guess she's just self-conscious.
Right. Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
I guess it's our plan now.
We don't even know where we're going.
No, they don't. They get out there and they're like, it's freaking.
So,
Gandalf, which way is Mordor? Like that's where we got left. They run into some Ravenclaw girl. That's weird. And they also run into Percy. And Percy starts to do his Percy thing on him. But Malfoy shows up. And I like this moment because Percy, flexes on him, his authority. And Malfoy's always quick to make fun of Weasleys. But even here in this moment, he shuts up and doesn't like insult Percy to his face. Because, like you said, cunning Slytherins. He knows who he can mess with and who he can't.
Oh, yeah.
He may hate Percy, but he's like, but he will take points away. I'm not gonna fool with that. So he gets on out of there.
Yeah, but choose your battles.
He does make a note though that he's seen Percy a lot in the dungeons, and Malfoy seems to think that Percy is trying to catch the heir of Slytherin. And Harry and Ron are like, "Ooh, is he gonna tell us more?" So they get to the Slytherin common room, and Draco forgets the password for a second. He's like, "Oh wait, it's our racist slogan."
Yeah, Mein Kampf,
pure blood. Again, not suspicious at all. They go in, and I'm not going to lie. The Slytherin common room is dope.
Oh,
have you played
yes,
Hogwarts Legacy?
I have. The giant aquarium looking into the big lake is so cool.
And you see the freaking giant squid whack the screen, the glass every once in a while.
Dude. I was like hesitant to play as a Slytherin because even though, I wasn't hesitant. Of course I was going to play as a Slytherin, but I told myself all along I was going to play as every house. I didn't because the Slytherin common room was so dope. I was like, I don't even care what Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw looks like. This is awesome. So yeah, no regrets.
I mean, honestly, the Hufflepuff common room is like Hobbiton turned into a dorm. Like that's basically what the doors are circular. Like that's very
cool.
much Hobbiton in the Hufflepuff common room, and they got green plants hanging there. Anyway, yeah, the Slytherin common room's dope. I wrote down the description of it. Slytherin common room was a long, low underground room with rough stone walls and a ceiling from which round greenish lamps were hanging on chains. A fire was crackling under an elaborately carved mantelpiece ahead of them, and several Slytherins were silhouetted around it in high back chairs. Heck, I even loved this in the movie. Like, I know it expands it more in the game, but just the scene in the movie was like,
oh yeah, these like black leather studded chairs and stuff. Yeah, it's awesome.
They're all freaking rich. Like, that's the vibe. But anyway, Draco says, "Boys, check out this newspaper," which is really funny. Of like, guys, look at the newspaper.
Right.
He shows them the Daily Prophet and what it says. And what does it say? It says that Arthur Weasley has been, I wrote fired. I meant to say fined. Don't worry, listener. He's not fired. He's been fined for enchanting that car. And then there's also a bit about Lucius going, I think we should fire him. He should resign. He's a disgrace to the name of wizard.
Also, that law that he's been working on that's like, civil rights. Let's nix that in the bud.
I mean, while you have an audience, get what you gotta say out. Draco thinks that's really funny, and then he goes on in Draco fashion to say some super racist stuff about muggles and muggle-born wizards. This one line was interesting to me, though. When he's imitating Colin, it says Malfoy started taking pictures with an imaginary camera, and there's a part right here, and did a cruel but accurate impression of Colin. Like, even JK was like, just so you know, it's effed up what he was doing, but he was good at it.
But that kid is annoying.
Freaking Ollie. So this, and then also right afterwards was funny to me because it says he dropped his hands and looked at Harry and Ron. What's the matter with you two? Because it's like, boys, why aren't you laughing at my joke?
Right.
I did a funny.
That's how I feel every time we record our podcast, man. It's all good.
They're not even listening. But it is also funny because, Harry says, apparently Crabbe and Goyle were just slow all the time because once they started to react, he was like, checks out. Malfoy finally spills the beans about the heir of Slytherin, kind of. He says that he wishes he knew who it was so he could help them, which is one of the most messed up things Malfoy ever says. But don't worry. He will soon say something even more messed up. He tells them the Chamber of Secrets was opened 50 years ago. His daddy let him know, but his dad won't tell him anything else. His dad's like, it'll be suspicious. It'll be suspicious if you know more. And the only thing else he knows is that the last time it was opened, a mudblood died. And that's when he says, this time, I hope it's Granger. That's frick.
Dark, dude.
You're wishing death on another person. A 12-year-old.
Like even Crabbe and Goyle, if it was actually them, would have been like, whoa.
This is how Kit and Steve would have reacted to to your polyjuice thing of like, the frick you talking about? Yeah, and this is one of those moments that stands out to me because I am not a Dramini person. I'm not one of those people that like ships them to or says like Draco's just misunderstood. I'm like, guys, I understand he's a product of his parents, but he's still what he is. You know what I'm saying? Like,
dude, he's taking it and running. Absolutely.
Yeah. They gave him the oop. Don't get me wrong. They gave him the oop, but he dunked it home for sure. Another really funny part though. So, he explains that the last time it happened, they blamed somebody and that person went to Azkaban.
First mention of Azkaban?
It is the first mention of Azkaban, but I stopped where I was talking right there because I was like, wait a minute. This is restricted checks and stuff, but I don't think he did go to Azkaban. So, because like, what are you talking about? Anyway, we'll get there. But Malfoy lets slip that they also have that at his house that they have their own secret chamber, and Ron's reaction to that is ho, ho. The Brits. Finally, through their hour runs out and they start to change back into themselves. So the boys haul it out of there. very inconspicuously. It says they run into the stone wall. Like, don't mind us. He just got a stomach ache. I also like the note about the closet because it says when they're running back to the bathroom, they can hear pounding on the closet that they locked Crab and Goyle in, and they're like, "Oh yeah, let's leave their shoes there."
Right.
So they are people who drug others, but at least they're polite about it.
And nobody's going to question the fact that these two children just woke up in a closet, stripped down, missing their shoes.
That's what I'm saying. I was like,
just covered in pudding.
Ever? Oh no! We had 4th helpings. Too many snack packs. Yeah, I thought, does Malfoy never like put 2 and 2 together of what happened here? But also, the only saving grace is that it is Crab and Goyle. So maybe he was like, did you get lost on your way to the hospital wing and just started vomiting all the pudding on yourselves in that closet? So anyway, they make their way back to Myrtle's class, or Myrtle's bathroom. Have you ever been to the Wizarding World, like Universal?
I have not, no.
One of the things that they do there is in the men's and women's bathroom on a loop, they just play Myrtle's voice.
Oh, really?
And it's really weird because you're a man trying to pee in there and you hear, "Oh, Harry." I'm like, whoa, that's crazy.
I don't like it.
I'm getting like, why am I hearing a little girl's voice in here? It's not okay. Anyway, they're ready to tell Hermione all the deets, but she tells them in her best Gollum voice to go away.
That's good.
Right? Thank you. High praise. To make a long story short, okay, I might not include this in the thing, but top 5 jokes of all time on streaming things, in my opinion, my most humble opinion, was it was either you or Steve who said this, but one of y'all made a joke and Kit goes, "Not bad on the fly." And I think it's in one of the Lord of the Rings episodes. And I think it was you, and you go, "Put that on my freaking tombstone. Not bad on the fly." I just love that. But anyway, to make a long story short, we find out that Hermione didn't use one of Millicent's hairs, but Millicent had a cat, and she accidentally used one of Millicent's cat hairs, and the potion was not made for animals. We were warned about that before. And so Hermione is looking like a big old kitty cat, big old furry girl. I'm going to pretend I didn't say that.
My head was going there.
I know. And Myrtle, she's the only one that's hype about it. She's like, "You got a tail." So we know what kind of person Myrtle is. And the chapter ends with them taking Hermione to the hospital wing. I wrote down Pomfrey as a G because it's like she doesn't ask too many questions.
Right.
It's like in the book before, she didn't ask too many questions. Like she just sort of accepted Ron's excuse of, "Yeah, a dog bit me," whenever the dragon had bit him.
Mm-hmm.
And this time, we see it in the next chapter. She's just like, "Yeah, whatever. I'll just heal you." And there you go. That's the end of that chapter. Yay! All right. So our favorite lines from chapter 12, Polyjuice Potion. Andy, what you got for me?
I didn't mark down favorites for this one because I didn't know that I was breaking it down based on chapter.
That's okay.
I just, all my favorites I picked from the first chapter. So you got to carry me on this one.
That's right. The whole podcast community is a shame, Andy. Shame. No, listeners, shut up. This was a gift that you got to listen to Andy. So one of my favorites, I wrote down 2. It was the one of like Harry thinking that all he needed was Dumbledore to walk in when and for Fox to be like dead, and it happens. I thought that was really funny. Another one I liked was, I just like this because I thought it was sweet when Hedwig finally appears. "Hello," said Harry happily as she landed on his bed. "Are you speaking to me again?" And I'm like, him and his pet. I love that. Good girl, Hedwig. Then I'm giving you your letters now, Harry. But none of my listeners are going to know what I'm doing. But 2:13, I wrote down, "We still need a bit of the people you're changing into," said Hermione matter-of-factly, as though she were sending them to the supermarket for laundry detergent. Like, I feel like what she was doing was holding back these details from them so they wouldn't stress out about it until they needed to. And so, good leadership there. But you could also say that it was like That's all we got to do? That's a pretty big thing, Hermione. Like, the frick you mean? And she just like says it so casually to them. And then my other one I got two more and then finish up that. Oh, no, I just have one more because I didn't think that was actually that good. Honestly, this is Malfoy talking. Honestly, if you were any slower, you'd be going backward.
That is good.
That's a good rip. A good rip. And that's all I got for favorite lines. So moving on to Transfigurations, differences from book to movie. First one is that Harry, and we've highlighted this in book one, but when you talk to the Sorting Hat and it talks to you, you have to put the hat on for it to like read your thoughts and communicate with you. In the book, not only that, you like cover your eyes. So it goes way down over your head. But in the book, in the movie, it doesn't need that. Like it needs to be on your head to read your thoughts, but it can speak when it's off of your head.
Yeah. So I think that the line, be in your bonnet, Potter, is more effective when it's, you're wearing it on your head.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you got something on your mind. Literally.
What's going on? And then there is no Great Hall Feast. Like we said, there's a lot of omissions, and we don't get the Christmas feast. I think we see a snapshot of it, but we don't get to see Hagrid getting lit. Nothing like that. Crabbe and Goyle are not put in the cupboard whenever they get drugged. They eat the floating cupcakes and they just fall over. And then later there's a scene of Harry and Ron running back, and they run past those two, like just waking up.
Which is ridiculous that they're like, oh, look, floating cupcakes. That's normal.
It's Hogwarts. It's Hogwarts.
Just eat
it. How thick can you get? And then they don't drink the potion in the stalls in the movie. In the stall, they like all go, cheers, all bottoms up together. They're just creaming it all together. And then Hermione and Ron are like, we're going to be sick. And they run to the stalls, and Harry watches like what I feel like was some pretty good effects for the time. Totally. His face bubble in the mirror. And then last one that I have, aside from omissions, because there are a few more omissions, but the last like noticeable change is that their voices don't change when they go polyjuice form in the movies. So in the movies, it's like they stick with it. If Harry turns into somebody, it's still Harry's voice. But in the books, that changes up. And then moving on, so that's it for our Transfiguration section. Moving on to our golden snitches, Lord Tidbits and Grabs for this one. The first one I wrote down was, this is our first mention of a phoenix. So we talked about a phoenix. The phoenix was a large swan-sized scarlet magical bird with a red and gold plumage, along with a golden beak and talons, black eyes, and a tail as long as a peacock's. Phoenixes would phoenixes. Is that what it was again? Phoenix, sorry. Phoenix would usually nest on mountain peaks and were gentle herbivores. They were not known for fighting. Not this phoenix. A phoenix was also one of the most independent and detached creatures in the world. A phoenix, I keep forgetting, phoenix was normally really magnificent, but every so often they had to rejuvenate themselves with an event known as the Burning Day, in which the bird would suddenly burst into flames, only to rise from the ashes shortly after as a newborn chick. And then in just a few days, it would grow to full size. And just as Dumbledore said, they can carry immense loads, and their tears have healing powers, and they can sing some pretty cool songs. So, and they are used for wand cores, their feathers. So that's all I got on them. The other golden snitch I had for this chapter was, I think it's the first time that we're told about exploding snaps, which is a card game that the Wizards play. There were 3 variants of exploding snaps. The first one, the classical game, was quite simple. However, it required some reflex. The rules were simple. When you saw 2 identical pictures, hit the card with the top of your wand. 1 point was yours, and then 1 point was yours. The player with the most points won the game. The hard part was the cards shuffled faster and faster. In the second version, the patience game was harder. You had 20 cards and you revealed them in pairs. You had to find 2 identical pictures as fast as you could, and cards exploded soon after you revealed them for the first time. And then the third variant was Bavarian rule snap. In this variant, cards were dealt in a circle with identical cards to those already dealt being placed in the center. The identical cards had to be tapped in a limited time frame, or else all the cards would explode. So sounds like a fun game.
I have never Googled it, and I've always been so curious what exploding snap was. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. If I'm going to be honest, normally I do some pretty solid homework and I've like researched this thoroughly. I didn't even read that paragraph before I said it. So we both learned it together at the same time. And then finally, the last golden snitch I had was our first mention of Azkaban. We're told about Azkaban. I'm not going to say much else about it because it's more for book 3, but Azkaban, the wizard prison, it's a like little triangle island, or it's on an island, and it's a big prison in the shape of a triangle where all the naughty wizards go. So there you go. And that's all we got for our golden snitches. Now, that's all we got for the main bulk of the podcast. I know we're already almost to 2 hours, so if you need to get going, that's all right.
You got me for a couple of minutes.
Cool. So on to our final segment. Before we get going, I just want to say to all the listeners, all the normies who don't want our Chamber of Secrets talk, our juicy, gossipy restriction section talk. We speak in parcel tongue. If you don't want to enter, oh no, if you don't want to hear none of that, get on out before you get your soul gets sucked out. Listen, you don't get it if you're leaving now, but come book 3, you'll laugh at that joke. But listeners, thank you for listening so much. Glad to have you here. Please, please, please subscribe to Streaming Things. Check out that podcast. Like I said, it is my favorite podcast in the world. So much of my podcast today would not exist if I had never listened to Streaming Things. It's fantastic. So we're on Spotify. Man. Yeah, of course. Thank you. Honestly, it's truly a wonderful thing to listen to every week. I get so sad when you guys aren't covering something I'm into. So much so that I'm like, I'll give it a try. And I'll give it a try. And then I'm like, man, I guess not. Or, yay, it's something interesting. Like I did that with the Dune series, and I listened to like the first 2 or 3 episodes, and then I was like, I'm not going to listen to Dune anymore, or I'm not going to watch Dune. So
I think that was how we felt too while we were covering it.
It's always so sad when Kit gets sad about something because, he's kind of like the driving force a lot of the time. And he's just like, I'm going to be honest, guys, this kind of sucks. And what I love about it is he never wants it to suck. He's not a hate watcher. I love that so much. Like in the first time y'all went through Rings of Power, when it started to get bad, I enjoyed it the whole way through. I understand there were some bad things about it, but I loved that about him, was that he was like, I'm not a hate watcher and I'm not going to crap on things people like. I'll share my thoughts, honestly, but again, listeners, what are you doing? Go check these people out on all streaming platforms, right? Is that right?
Yeah, we're everywhere.
Fantastic. Anyway, now on to the restricted section. So did you have anything, or did you want me to just rattle off what I had?
Go for it. I didn't have anything.
Okay, so some of the restricted things I had was people being proactive. What did I write? Oh, people buying protective stuff, like in book 6. So, it mentions that when this started to happen and then people were going crazy in Hogwarts, getting worried about the Chamber of Secrets being open, they started buying these like basically essential oils and stuff to ward off and amulets and stuff to ward off evil. And book 6, when everybody's finally accepted that Voldemort's back, there's Mr. Weasley has a problem with this, going around trying to find these anti-dark magic things that are actually like snake oil stuff. And it was interesting because, if you might already know this, you may have even said it before in one of your podcasts, but book 2 and book 6, were almost flipped. She was writing a lot of book 6 and then she goes, you know what? I'm going to include this late. Book 6 was supposed to be Chamber of Secrets when he goes down there. He was supposed to have discovered Horcruxes at this point, and then then defeated the first one then in Chamber of Secrets.
Interesting. But I did not know that.
Yeah, and then that's why there's so many connections between the two. We learn who Tom Riddle is, and some of his backstory, and then you see that again in book 6. So that part's flipped, and so it's always really cool. You'll see a whole lot of parallels between book 2 and book 6. The other one I have, we get a whole bunch of Jenny references, like you mentioned, of her being bummed out or sad or nervous about something. And so she, when you're just reading through this, you think, oh, poor Jenny, she's all sad. When actually she's evil. She's not evil. She's being controlled by the evil guy, but but still, and so there's a few instances of that throughout these chapters that are cool to pick up on. That's why it's so cool to reread these books, because you catch those moments. And it's even cooler when you podcast through them, because you really catch these things. We also get a note about Snape potentially being a mind reader, because it mentions how Harry's like, I'm sure
he knows that it was me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And again, oh no, that's book 5 when we learn that Snape can do that. But still, so there's a note there, but he had no proof, couldn't do nothing. Snape, as you mentioned, teaches Harry Expelliarmus, which becomes his trademark spell, his signature move. He hit him with the Expelliarmus out of nowhere. And that's become Harry's like calling card. And it's interesting that he learned that from Snape of all people. But it is funny. I should have mentioned this in some of the other changes, like in the first chapter, Rictum Sempra was supposed to be just the tickle spell, but in the movie they treat it like just a blast.
Right.
Yeah. You guys talk about that on your podcast of. It seems like all these spells are just blah, blah, like hit somebody. There's no creativity.
This one, he just flies back sideways.
Oh, cool. Teach me that one. And there's a note about McGonagall being upset about a ferret. So this was interesting to me because like halfway through the first chapter, Harry hears, as he's like searching for Justin Finch, whatever his name is, JFF. As he's searching for him, he hears McGonagall being upset with somebody for turning their classmate into a badger. And then it's also funny because at the end of that chapter, with no reference to it at all, it says that one of her students showed up with like a streak of black and gray hair. And it's like, that seems so random if you don't remember that one sentence from that one paragraph 10 pages before that.
Oh, that is a good call out.
But it also made me think of...
technically, it's a ferret.
Yeah, it made me think of movie 4 when Malfoy gets turned into a ferret. I got 2 more. The other one is that Hermione... I was like, what? I wrote Hermione getting into the laundry ? So it mentions that Hermione goes to the laundry and she's like, I found these extra clothes for you guys in the laundry. And I thought that was interesting because the house elves do the laundry. And in book 3 or 4, whenever it is that she learns about house elves, I think it's book 4 when she starts Spew. Yeah. And she freaks out that they're in the kitchens, like making them food. And I thought it was interesting that she didn't like catch them in the laundry room either. What did she think was going on in the laundry? Like, was it just more magic to her of these are just the laundry's just doing itself? Yeah.
That's how it works at my house too. I just put it in a basket and it's clean.
It's just like magic. And then finally, the last restricted section I have was the Percy subplot continues. Because we get these little notes of, we got them at the beginning of the book. And again, as I'm reading these in the early chapters, I'm thinking of what like you guys would say, especially what Kit would say of like, yeah, Percy's been stuck up in his room all summer long and he just stays in there the whole time. We don't know what he's doing.
15, so I think we know what he's doing.
All the brothers are like, what's going on? But, I don't know. I honestly don't know. But we get notes in this chapter that he's sneaking around. We see some Ravenclaw girl. We see him like, what's he up to? And so it is, again, I say subplot. I feel like it's almost meant to be a red herring plot that, hey, is Percy the heir of Slytherin? So it's those little things coded in there as well. But anyway, I know we mentioned some things to talk about in the restricted section. I can't remember a dang thing.
I did not make note of it. I'm sure we covered it, though.
That's right.
We're consummate professionals.
Consummate. I don't know what that's consummated? Consummated professional?
Yeah, something like that.
We consummated the podcast.
Hey, we just met.
Well, that's all I got. Andy, do you have anything else to talk about?
No, man. I just want to say I appreciate you bringing me here. This has been super fun. You are a pro. You have a voice for podcasts for sure.
Don't make me cry now. All right. No, thank you so much. This is honestly like one of the coolest things I've ever gotten to do is do a podcast episode with like the host of my favorite podcast. This is so cool. I kind of like had a weird dream that this might happen when I first started doing this, but I was like, it won't be until like I get to book 5 or 6 that there's even a chance. Like I never imagined that just DMing somebody would turn out so well. Listeners, don't you dare blow up Andy's DMs though. You leave that man alone. But give Streaming Things a follow.
Please do. Yeah, check us out. We're fun.
Yeah. The last thing I want to say before I let you go, like I said, thank you so much. I'll keep saying it every time I talk about this episode. So cool. But listeners, what I need you to do, I'm a Patreon of Streaming Things. I need everybody to become a Patreon, not to support them and give them money, but I need them to support me. Just do it for 1 month even, because I need them to support me in my endeavor to get Streaming Things to cover Pirates of the Caribbean.
Okay.
Once a year. I don't know if you've seen this. Once a year on the Patreon, I just request it. I just say it in the big group chat. I'm like, this is my annual request to cover Pirates of the Caribbean.
Is that you? That's funny.
It's me. And on this last one, it actually got some traction. It got a bunch of likes. And I don't know. I think it's Steve who manages the account on Patreon. But he said, that's kind of funny. We were talking about this just this weekend. And he said that like 2 months ago. And I was like, don't you tease me now. Don't you give me hope. I got so excited. And I've listened even to episodes over coverages I don't give a frick about, because I'm just waiting for somebody to go, yeah, we're thinking about doing Pirates of the Caribbean. I was like, please. Because outside of Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings, that's my other comfort movie series.
Okay.
I love watching that. So I was like, boys, as the Brits say, it'll do ratings. But anyway, that's enough joshing around. I appreciate it so much. Thank you for being on here, Andy.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Listeners, go check out Streaming Things and stick around for next week. Don't stick around. It's over now. We're ending this. But next week, we'll be covering chapters 13 and 14 with a Harry Potter podcast, Potter Revisited. So that'll be cool. Looking forward to that. And that's all I got. Goodbye, everybody. Stop. Thank you for listening to Retold. Artwork for this podcast was created by Rachel Ortlip. Music was created by Taylor Jarvis. And the Retold podcast is produced by me. That's right. I made this.